Once you have your podcast episode out into the world, that's not the end. Sorry, I know it stinks. There's more you have to do. And that comes with repurposing your content into marketing for each of the platforms that you want to focus on. And it can feel like a really daunting task. Today, we have Deirdre on from Capsho talking all about how to use the tool to repurpose your podcast in an intelligently lazy way, which I love that phrasing because, yes, please, we want to make this as easy as possible. Also, Deirdre gave me a code that you can use. It's Alicia. ALESIA. You can go to capsho.com, go ahead and sign up for a free trial. And if you use the code Alicia, you get 50% off for as long as you are with Capsho. It was such a wonderful gift from Deirdre. Super grateful. Deirdre is going to give us some really strategic ways that we can repurpose our content using something like Capsho or even some pitfalls that we tend to fall into as podcasters. Please join me in welcoming Deirdre to the podcast. Welcome to Podcasting Unlocked, the show for purpose-driven podcasters. I'm Alicia Galati, founder of Galati Media, and I'm here to share actionable strategies to help you amplify your message and grow your audience. Hello, Deirdre. I'm so excited to talk to you today all about Capsho as well as repurposing podcasts. It is such an important part of being a podcaster. I can't tell you the number of times I've seen people on social media where they're like, hey, my podcast is live. How do I get more people to listen? And it's like, you gotta tell people that it's out there.
We forget about that part, don't we?
So if you could start by telling everyone a bit about you, who you are, what you do, and your podcast that you have.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Alicia, for having me on. So my name's Deirdre. I'm the CEO and co-founder of an AI-powered software called Capsho. It is for entrepreneurs who create content. So that could be a podcast, could be YouTube videos. It could just be training or webinars. We actually even have someone who just literally goes for a walk and records a 2-minute thing on her phone. And she uses Capsho to create all of their content marketing assets. So we can go into that a little bit later. But my podcast is called Win the Content Game. I've actually started podcasting back in 2020, but the original podcast was one that was a little bit different. It was still in marketing. It was still in digital marketing, but it was very much for e-commerce brands. At the time, we had an agency and then a coaching business that was really talking to e-commerce brands. What happened through that journey was, Alicia, we were talking about the repurposing thing and how we need to actually get our podcast out there. Like, how do we get more listeners? Is we have to actually market the podcast. And we were laughing about that because I'm like, well, we forget about that because I certainly did not realize with my first podcast that needed to happen. And it was through that journey, through that struggle, honestly, was how we created Capsho. At the time, I thought, this repurposing to me felt like I had to be everywhere. Like literally we were on every single platform to the point where our whole team burnt out trying to do it all. It was crazy. So I'd love to talk about some of the pitfalls and where to start when we think about repurposing and marketing our podcast and really trying to grow it, because I think there's some nuance that we probably just need to think through when we're trying to come up with our strategy.
Yeah, I think we all have that original podcast that we started that we're like, it just needs to die in the dark. Nobody needs to know what that was. Because, so my first one was in 2018, and it was a marketing and inventory analysis. So the back end side for e-commerce businesses, which is really interesting because my background's in manufacturing and supply chain, my corporate background. And so started that podcast, then started one with my sister about cults, and then moved on to this one, and then launched a mini series one, and then another one that I launched this year all about romance novels. So I love just being able to creatively flow with podcasts that when we start one, which I think is a really important point, when you start a podcast, you are not married or tied forever to this idea. You can shift and you can flow with wherever your creativity wants to go, wherever your inspiration wants to go, and it is okay to do. So let's go ahead and jump into some of those Pitfalls, I'm really excited because my brain tends to work in repurposing, just having a background in
Mhm.
digital marketing. But I know not everyone's does. Like, I'm thinking high level, all right, I've got this one piece of content. I can easily push it out into 20 different ways. And when I
Mhm.
explain that to people, they're like, wait, how are you not losing your mind? So let's talk through
Yes.
some of those pitfalls that people tend to fall
Yeah.
into.
Well, I think that's a big one. And that was the one that I started with, which is, back then I was listening to people like Gary Vee, where it was like, content dominate, you got to be everywhere. That was very much to your point. It's like, okay, well, I have this one piece of content, which is a podcast, and it seems relatively simple enough to disseminate that on literally every single platform. And having gone through that process and doing it, I can tell you that there's a difference between quantity and quality. I think that we definitely had quantity down, like, as I said, to the point where we burnt the team out. But if we're actually looking to get results, then, and I know, at least, Alicia, by the time this goes live, you would have rebranded your podcast. And I think it's a great reason, but I also like where you started because it was very outcome focused, right? Like, hey, we're here to get leads. And that comes down to the quality. And if we want an outcome, a particular outcome from any activity that we're doing, we need to be really quite intentional about where we are and how we're doing it. And so I know that a lot of people are kind of jumping off. It seems like they're jumping off the social media bandwagon, but I'm just going to use it as an example because it's just like the simplest thing. We know that there are multiple social media platforms and it is relatively simple to be on all of them. But the problem is, because I did this myself, all on all of them, but the content that we were creating was not purpose fit for that platform. The conversation, like I wasn't actually actively reaching out and trying to activate that platform and therefore get my content seen, which is a big, big problem. So if you don't have the time to do some of that heavy lifting, then you've got to realize that it's probably not worth your time being on that platform at all. So for me, and I talk to, some of my good friends who are actually experts in the social media space, and one or two platforms max is really what we should be focusing on. And I think repurposing as a broad term can very much have this feeling of like, well, it's every single platform, it's like everywhere. But I think that's a really big pitfall that we can fall into where it's like, hey, let's repurpose because that's a smart thing to do and an efficient thing to do, but let's repurpose with intention where we're only going to really focus on one or two platforms and really make those platforms work for us. Even though Capsho itself can help you be on all platforms, we're always like, we say to people who on board with us and who are new to the ecosystem, be like, you'll see that it can do everything, but please don't. Like, just choose the one or two things that you want it to do and really, really dial that in before you even try to open up a new channel.
Yeah, I love that tip. And I think that it is so important. And I agree, one or two platforms. And if you want one of those to be podcast guesting, that's okay too.
Mhm.
Like, you don't
Yes.
have to be on a bunch of places. And I love this idea of like, you have to not just post content that that platform wants, but you have to engage. And I think that's another part that people fall short on a lot is that engagement
Mhm.
piece because either they're not sure how to engage, they get weirdly spammy when they're
Yes.
engaging because
Oh
we're
gosh, I
humans on
know.
the internet trying to interact in a normal setting, but
Yeah.
it's not a normal setting. And so,
Yeah.
how do you show up? I saw someone post the other day that they had sent someone an Instagram DM, and because you can only send some, at least at the time of this recording, who knows what they're going to change later. You can only send someone one message if they are not following you or if you're not following
Mhm.
them, whatever. Yeah, if they're not
Mhm.
following you. And so she went to say, I love your like content. I love what you're doing. I like fangirling. And all she said was, I love you.
No.
The one message,
Oh,
the one
yeah,
chance
definitely don't do that.
she got.
That goes straight on the stalker list, like list. That's
Exactly. Like, you have to be really careful. And so
yeah.
these platforms aren't made for like our normal one-on-one interactions, the verbal inflections that we have in our voice. Like, I hate texting. Even my husband, I hate texting. I'm like, just come over here. Like, you're in the house with me. Just get over here, get in my office and talk to me. It's really hard to have those interactions. And so we have an episode with Jillian O'Keefe. We'll make sure we link it in the show notes where she talked about Instagram specifically, how to make sure, she has a mini course that I highly recommend, how to interact and really engage and boost that engagement on Instagram. Because if you want your content to be seen, you have to be engaging with other people, and it is so vitally important. So picking those one or two places to really be visible, I think that you can also very lightly and unintentionally post on other places as well, just for that little bite of visibility, like to show I'm in all the places. So what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Oh, for sure. I mean, look, as long as you go into things eyes wide open, then, you know, you can do whatever you want. Like to that point, you can for sure just like repurpose onto any other platform, knowing that you're probably not going to build a big following. You're probably not going to get a lot of engagement on that content. As long as your expectations are set there, then go for it. But if you think that you're going to start getting leads and you're going to blow up suddenly on that platform, like that's just not going to happen. So yeah, I think it's all about expectation management.
Yes, for sure. So, are there any other pitfalls, any other things that you're finding that people are doing as they're maybe starting off with Capsho or starting off with this idea of I want to repurpose content?
Yeah, I guess a big one. And look, like I'll preface this with like any strategy works. You just have to pick one and go for it. But I think it's important to have a strategy when you're going to, you know, quote unquote, attack a particular platform. Because I'll talk about social media, but I know that we want to go into maybe other types of mediums, but they're all built with a particular purpose in mind, like strategically, right? When you think about it, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, the whole thing is they want people to stay on their platform for a longer period of time, which is where the content comes in. And therefore, factors that are important to those platforms is things like engagement. It is things like watch time or read time or view time and all those sorts of things. And so it's important to know that because the platforms themselves are trying to drive a certain outcome, how do you almost help that outcome be driven? That's how you're going to actually kind of, you know, play into the, I don't love using the algorithm word, but it is what it is, right? Like you're playing into it. And so it's important, I think, to have a strategy. Now, the good thing is, if I sidebar like Capsho and what it does is that we have built in marketing strategy into the assets that Capsho creates. So we've kind of like done a lot of that heavy lifting because we know how important this stuff is to actually getting success on social media platforms, even like blogging, things like that. Like there's a little bit of a formula to how to get that working. And we've built a lot of that into Capsho actually to help people, you know, with a starting point to get that, to drive that engagement. But content is just the one part of it. I still go back to you have to activate that platform because the content will only ever get seen or engaged with if you have the right audience following you and if you have the right message that they care about. And those two things cannot be done by AI. They're human things. You have to go out and engage. You have to go out and find people who are your people. Unfortunately, there's some AI stuff that can help with that, but I would not recommend just spamming people with AI.
Yeah, it gets really difficult too. And like I've hired a social media agency to help. I want to say this was 2021 or 2022 to help with engagement on Instagram specifically. And one thing that I found was that like they were saying things that I necessarily would not say or using like, so I'm not religious. I'm actually quite anti-organized religion personally.
Yep.
And so they had commented on someone's like praise the Lord stuff and were like, yeah, he is good. And I was just like, I would never say that. And if
Yeah.
someone met me, they like, if someone knows me, they know I would never say that. So we'll leave it for now. But like this is another level, like not something that you would initially think to let the team know. Like, yes, it's humans behind there, but it's not me. Right.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
when they were transitioning to doing other stuff, I was like, that's fine. I want to take it over myself anyway, because I feel like I want to be the one in there. And that's not to say I have to be in every day, right? I can do maybe 15 minutes a day of really strategic engagement. I can do 1 hour a week where it's really focused and heavy work, but I don't have to be in there all the time, nonstop. I can put boundaries on my phone usage. Like these are things that I've done to help my sanity. and also still be like, okay, I've got 3 hours across all of my social media platforms today. That's play fun watching reels time as well included in there. So I have to be really strategic in what I'm doing. And then it automatically shuts off at 10 at night. Like no more social media after
Love
that.
it.
And that is something that just helps me protect my peace. It also helps remind me that I don't have to be connected. And I say connected, but really, is it really connected when there's a human being, sitting on the couch right next to me? Not really, when I could just be connecting with my husband. And so, yeah, those are some things that I've put on like boundaries for myself to help me protect myself so that my brain isn't like, oh, I can go on social media and doom scroll. It's fine. No, it's not okay. And I need to stop.
Yes. Love it. I love it. Yeah. Just to go back to the repurposing thing, it's like, it is 100% something that we should all be doing to save our time and sanity. But I think those two things is like, be really, really intentional and mindful of like where you're repurposing. Just choose one or two and have a strategy that sits behind it. Those would be my two main things that we go into kind of then the future repurposing chat that we're going to have, Alicia.
Yes, let's get into it. So repurposing, what are some ways that you find that people start when they're starting to use Capsho that they are starting with the repurposing side? Let's just say they have a podcast and they want to repurpose that podcast into different content. Where are some of the places that they usually start?
Yeah, I mean, the kind of no-brainer is social media. So when we talk about strategy for social media, I don't know, Alicia, if you know Katie Brinkley at all. She's an expert in the social media space, and we worked quite heavily with her to actually build her 4-post social media strategy into Capsho. And that strategy is all about how do we get our audience from awareness of a problem or a solution or basically the message that we're talking about that week or that month, all the way to action. So from awareness to action in 4 posts. And so we actually built that inside of Capsho. And when I talk about how we have to be really intentional about the platforms and what it is that they're trying to drive, even the first post, which she calls the awareness post, which Capsho does help create, it's different for all the platforms. Like on LinkedIn, it's a poll, because that's what actually gets engagement on LinkedIn. On Facebook, it's just like a polarizing statement on those purple backgrounds that's just like bang in your face, and it's kind of like a true or false. And then people love to just like engage on those, on Instagram. So it's you start to see already that it's like, oh my gosh, each of these platforms are really different. Imagine if you're trying to be on all of them creating, all these different types of content that is what that platform is trying to distribute out. So on the social media side, Capsho helps with, because we've built in that marketing strategy. So social media is one way that people who podcast do repurpose their content into. A big one, which I know, Alicia, you're more and more a fan of, is the blogging part of it. And blog posts, I feel like they're kind of always there, but they have this really big boost and then it's kind of died down a little bit. It is such a powerful way. Again, it needs a strategy behind it. We have worked with some SEO blogging experts to help structure, what it is that Capsho creates from a blogging perspective and things like that. But then, again, Alicia, we're talking about this, but then it's like you still have to market. Yeah. It seems counterintuitive because it feels like content is the marketing, but the more content that you create, the more marketing you have to do for it's I don't know about you, like that was like a big like when I had this realization, it was one of those moments where I was like, oh my God, what have I been thinking my whole life? It's like finding out that Santa Claus doesn't exist. Like, it's like, what? Content itself isn't the marketing part of it. But like, that's why I always talk about, there's the content creation part, which softwares like Capsho and other AI tools make so simple. But then there is, and I call it the activation part of it. Even when you have a blog post, like I know, Alicia, you're more and more using like Pinterest to get the blog post out there. And so that's marketing content, right? Yeah. There are these other, how do you then use other assets that Capsho, for example, creates to be able to create a Pinterest post, a Threads post, and an X post, like whatever it is. And that's very, very doable when you have the assets there and it's been repurposed for you already, and you can just pick and choose then what it is that you use. It gets to become really simple, actually.
Yes. And I want to add that adding a automation system on the back end helps a ton. So using something like Capsho to create that initial content that is going to serve each of those platforms. And then I use Tailwind to schedule out all of my Pinterest stuff. But I don't just schedule it out. I actually have an evergreen bucket. So my core content, especially my solo episodes, the things that I want to be known and seen for, I have those funneling through to regularly be posting. So every day, at least 5 pins go live that I don't have to touch or think about that are past content that I have created. And so using something like that. And then I also use Meet Edgar for Facebook and LinkedIn as a way to repurpose past solo episodes to then just keep the visibility going. And then I'm very intentional about, all right, this week we're going to talk about this week's content as well, right? Not just worrying about past stuff, but at least having one day a week where the past content can get seen, because then that drives more traffic to the past content I have because I have so much, right? Like it doesn't make sense to just be like, all right, it's there. They'll find it. They don't. Gotta tell people about it.
100%. Yeah. As I said before, it's like finding out Santa Claus doesn't exist when you realize that it's like, I have to actually tell people that I have content. Like, they should just find it. It's out there.
I know. It's not 2009 blogging.
No, not that.
I know, it was so much easier to get seen, right? Like even if you look 10 years ago, when I first started listening to podcasts and being able to easily find podcasts, because there were not that many, and it was easy to just type in the one that I wanted or the kind of topic I was looking for. And then you had all the really big Facebook groups where all the content was just funneling through. Things have changed. And I think that we as content creators and content marketers, begrudgingly as it may be, have to find other ways to really meet our dopamine seeking new followers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's so real. But yeah, going back to repurposing, it's like, at least a good thing is that tools like Capsho and the ones that you mentioned does make it a lot easier and simpler to do. I mean, there's a reason why I have a sloth sitting next to me. It's like because our whole ethos is how do we help people be intelligently lazy? And that's what we do. So it's like everything that Capsho creates, even from the show notes that we write, it's like it was designed to be, you know, I hate using the word, but there's no other way that I can describe it, but like SEO driven as much as podcast players can be SEO driven. Like that's, you know, it's same with the YouTube description, you know, even the thumbnail generator. So we have like image generation as well inside of Capsho now, you know, even the way that the thumbnail generator operates, it's like it's designed to be a little bit more on the eye-catching side than it is on the more graphic side, you know. Things like that. You know, we also have clipping studio inside of Capsho for anyone who uploads videos. And you can even ask it like what you want it to do. So rather than just blindly clipping whatever and then trying to put that out there, I call that content vomiting. Content vomiting on the internet. You know, like ask it. You ask Capsho to find the funniest moments, find the most inspiring moments. Now, it won't always hit like exactly on all of the clips, but out of the 5-6 clips that it finds and generates, you'll be able to find at least 1-2 really good ones that, again, with intention, you can then put out there to actually test and learn and see, is this what your audience actually wants to hear about or hear more about or not even. Yeah. So yeah, everything I think inside of marketing, repurposing, like all of that, I think if we approach it with like a test and learn mindset, then that's when we can actually grow and hopefully have a little bit of fun with what we're doing around content.
And lazily do it.
Yeah.
Yes, perfect. So I feel like we've got some good basic ideas that we can get started with. I'm really hoping this wasn't too overwhelming for people. And I don't think it is, because you've given us some really 1 or 2 places to focus and then very basic ways to repurpose. And I do love that Capsho has that element where, hey, Facebook likes this, LinkedIn likes this, because a lot of that stuff ends up having to be stored in our brain. We are not social media experts across all of the platforms. We might have one that we're like relatively good at, but that's it. And so having these tools that can help us make life easier, make marketing this content easier, I think is so powerful. Where can people learn more about Capsho, check it out, all of that?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so if you're an entrepreneur, like a coach, consultant, service provider, you're creating content, whether that's audio, video, It could be webinars, it could be training, it could be you just have courses, you just go on a walk and want to record into your phone something like your thought of the day, then you can definitely use Capsho to actually repurpose and amplify your message. So just head to capsho.com, so capsho.com, sign up for a free trial. And really excitingly, we have given Alicia a code, which I think is just going to be Alicia, that you can put in. So when you sign up for a free trial, put in Alicia's code, Alicia, and you can get 50% off your Capsho plan for as long as you're with Capsho. So it's a perk that we kind of wanted to give back to the community at large to just kind of, so it feels a little bit tight right now. So we're like, okay, how do we just make this a lot simpler and easier for people to get into that content marketing game? Use the code Alicia when you sign up for your free trial.
Yes, and we'll make sure we have that in the show notes for anyone who's like, wait, how do you spell Alicia? It's right there. It's fine. Alisia. And make sure you do that. Check it out. I mean, it sounds really good. I'm actually thinking of like ways that I can use it for my hobby podcast. Like, even though I have a lot of systems in place, anything to make it easier where I'm not taking nights to work on this stuff, I am all for. So I'm excited to check it out. Deirdre, thank you so much. Where can people connect with you beyond Capsho? Is there any social media platform that you like to hang out at where they can connect with you and let you know how awesome you are?
Yeah. So I'm mainly on Facebook these days. So you can definitely find me there. Either Facebook or LinkedIn are probably my two platforms. Just my full name, Deirdre Tshien, on either platform, and you'll be able to find me.
Awesome. And we'll have links for that in the show notes as well for anyone driving or watching or doing other things. We got you. You're good. Deirdre, thank you so much. This has been so helpful.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. This is so much fun.